there any question that NATO, the United States, France, Great Britain are waging war against Russia?
First of all, I would have to say that NATO isn't at this juncture. What I would say is that there are nations who are NATO members who are active participants in this conflict. And I would list Poland, I would list Great Britain, I would list France, I would list Germany, and I would list the United States at a minimum, because we have troops on the ground who are actively involved in things, whether it be targeting or logistics or command and control, that are legitimate, targets from a military perspective. So we have people on the ground in Ukraine doing things that makes them a legitimate target, but we're doing it unilaterally. We're not doing it part of a NATO collective. This is a unilateral effort. And so far, we've kept large conventional units out of the mix. That would sort of be a red line. We have advisors, however we define them, whether they be active duty or sheep dip. That's where you take an active duty person and you sign some paperwork and they become a CIA contractor, things of that nature.
Right.
We have people working air defense. We have people working the sensitive systems, HIMARS targeting, etc. We know that the British Special Air Service is there. The Special Boat Service is there. The French have sent commando units there. We have our own special forces on the ground in Ukraine. So we already have military forces deployed to Ukraine, but we haven't gone in as a NATO entity saying, here is NATO forces, a brigade, a division, a corps coming in. That would prompt a direct military conflict
began
with
the
Russia.
conversation quite profoundly and quite accurately, I think, by saying that what the German generals were talking about is an act of war. It is no less an act of war, I would argue, for the United States to show Ukrainians how to pick a target inside Russia. It is no less an act of war for the British Special Forces to plan and plot how to blow up that bridge, and the same thing for the Poles and the French.
100%. And again, we need to understand the following. If it weren't for the intelligence support provided by the United States, Great Britain, France, and others, Ukraine wouldn't be able to accomplish any of the impressive results that they have, sinking Russian ships, damaging Russian ships, striking Russian air bases, because it's not just about slapping a scalp missile or Storm Shadow under a Su-24 and going off and launching it. There's downlinks that are taking place. We're running reconnaissance missions with drones, with satellites, etc., picking up the Russian air defense radars. That creates an overlay showing the links, the gaps that can be shot. That's shot downlinked to the airplane that the Ukrainian pilot's flying, and he's able then to load this into a targeting profile for the missile that he fires with the most up-to-date stuff that allows that missile to work its way through. This is why they're succeeding. If the Ukrainians didn't have this, they wouldn't have any of these successes. So it is an active war. We are active participants in the processes that allow the Ukrainians to strike Russian targets.
And no general government legislative body in any of these countries, United States, France, Germany, Great Britain, I don't know about Poland, but I'm going to ask you, has authorized those countries to deploy military assets against Russia?
Well, what I would say is that no legislative body has done it overtly. I know that the United States, for instance, we have presidential findings. So the president can sign a finding authorizing certain things to take place. You report these to the Gang of Eight, which are, the 8 most powerful members of the
That's the Congress Senate. Within the Congress that meets in secret and can't repeat to other members of Congress what they're told.
Right. So that's not really democracy taking place. The Prime Minister has the ability to do things with the Special Air Service that avoids parliamentary scrutiny. And I believe the French have similar things. So what we're seeing here is these nations that are ostensible, democracies are using mechanisms within their system which are undemocratic in principle and reality, and using it to bypass the kind of scrutiny that normally would take place before you send a nation to war. And I just want to remind people, if Germany ever did facilitate the use of Taurus missiles to take down the Kerch Bridge, that's an act of war that Russia would retaliate. That retaliation would more than likely lead to a direct conflict between NATO and the United States, which would lead to a general nuclear war, and then we all die. That's the stakes here. This isn't a game. We've allowed Germany and France, the Germans with their Taurus missile, France talking about sending troops over to hijack the national security of the United States. We are on a path towards a war that will be global ending, and we don't have Congress talking about it. We don't have the president being honest with the American people. We're pretending that it isn't happening, but it is happening.